Hello, 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 and welcome to Expand the Conversation with Jillian. This is season two. This will be the first episode of season two, and I'm so excited to be back. I've been recording a lot lately and really just connecting back in with the podcast, and so super excited to be here. There's been a lot of things happening. We are currently in the middle of eclipse season, which I'll talk a little bit about that today. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some of what's coming up after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, just as a collective, but also for me personally, and what I think is important for all of us to kind of take away, and what I've been receiving intuitively as far as like what I think a lot of people are missing the point around. So, thank you for joining me for this episode, and let's go ahead and get into it. So, we are currently in the middle of eclipse season. Also, this month is a month nine, and we like a collective month nine as well as a year nine. So, the energy right now is really rough. And it's interesting because even with everything that happened with Charlie Kirk's assassination, as shocked and just upset about it I was definitely something that was like, of course it's happening right now. Like with everything, just lots of endings right now. The nine energy definitely represents endings and it makes space for new things to come in. So we look at endings and sometimes it's like that attachment really makes it hard for us to let go or to accept change. And I think for me personally, on a spiritual level, like just as I've opened my gifts and everything, I do daily cord cutting. I teach my clients about daily cord cutting because it's so important and I don't want to say it makes it easier. It's just sometimes there's versions of you, friends, there's certain things that are going on, patterns, habits that happen that we kind of attach ourselves to. And sometimes even with our own beliefs, right? Like if someone's questioning our beliefs, it feels like a personal attack sometimes. And so I want everyone to remember, like, or keep in mind as I go into this episode that these are my personal beliefs, my personal opinions. If you disagree with them, that is okay. And, I am happy to hear the perspective of other people. Does that mean you'll necessarily change my personal beliefs? No, but, this podcast started as something that is about changing perspectives, not even changing, but about opening perspectives. It's about giving people the opportunity to hear something else that's possible, to literally create more brain wrinkles, whether it's like in understanding someone else or it's something that is like, okay, cool. I know that this is how I feel about this and I can understand how you feel that way, or I see how you feel that way, but I can still love you in that. And so in saying that, like that brings us back to unconditional love. What is that? What does that even mean? And I think a lot of people have no idea what that means. And I don't think it's because they don't want to know. I think it's just because it's not always common, right? Like to be able to be friends with someone, or like I consider friendships, relationships, right? To be in relationship with someone and they believe differently than you, if you can accept them for who they are, or if they like something different than you, accepting them and loving them for who they are. Maybe they're imperfect, maybe they're doing something that you don't agree with, accepting them, loving them for who they are. It doesn't mean that you have to have them in your life, but that's unconditional love, is when you can still love them even if you don't need them around. And in a podcast episode I recorded that you'll hear relatively soon after this one with Blanca, we talk about family constellations, and it's incredibly interesting. I highly recommend you get a session with her after listening to that episode, or now if you feel called to. But she is definitely it. We go into talking about family members and ending like certain relationships with family members because we know it's not good for us. When we end these relationships, it doesn't mean that you hate them, because having an emotion towards something means that it's still controlling you or it's still affecting you. Because if we talk about God, source, like Does God love all of his children? Yes. But as Source sees this world, it's everything that happens here is very neutral to him. Everything's neutral, right? And that's why it's so interesting when people talk about like what kind of God would allow things like this to happen. And, in doing the work that on myself and connecting into my soul deeper, learning my own soul path, my own soul contract, not that I know it to a T, but knowing that I signed up for everything that I've been through. And the most empowering part of that for me is knowing that like, okay, I know I can do this. Like my soul knows. She knows that I can do this. She knows that no matter what happens, I've got this. Like my soul believes in me more than my human could, I think, on most days. And so it's really interesting to see, but like, what are you allowing? Where are you allowing other people to control you because they're triggering you, because they believe something different than you? Like, how disempowering. And it's interesting because it's one of those things where some people get so triggered by what other people say or because other people disagree with what they believe or believe something different. And I'll give a little story about that. But it's interesting because ultimately, like with them getting so upset by it, they're missing a couple of opportunities, I feel like. If you're getting upset by someone disagreeing with what you believe in, um, that is what science is, right? It's constantly questioning ideas, it's questioning studies, it's questioning different theories, and that's how we've progressed in this world, right? Is to say, poke at something and say, hey, I don't know if it's supposed to be like this, right? And so allowing us to like have these conversations, and I think that's why Charlie Kirk's death was so devastating to me was because he was just someone who was speaking his opinions, inviting other people to come in and speak to them. If people didn't agree with it, that's fine, but he wasn't doing it in a violent way. People currently are talking about how there was a lot of hate speech, but there wasn't. He was very fact-based. There was plenty of times where he talked about numbers and, even in saying this, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable, I would say. And that's just because for me, I haven't always felt safe sharing my voice or my opinion. And so it's been easier for me to kind of like sit and watch what's going on. And I think this past year and a half has been the first time that I've really connected in with politics. And, I want to go ahead and say this and get this out there. Like, this is not a political platform. I do not plan on talking about my political beliefs every podcast episode. I don't believe that I will be sharing this all the time because I don't think that matters, right? Like some people that is really important to them, but for me, again, we go back to unconditional love. It goes back to I can see someone for where they're at and see, okay, I could see why you believe that, but also like this is my perspective and it's different. And that's okay. And it's okay that you believe differently than me. And even if we bring that concept into religion, it's so interesting because, my yoga teacher training, we in yoga, there's a lot of yoga philosophy, which is a lot of like Hinduism. We talk a lot about the different stories of the gods and goddesses. We talk about, there's a lot of chanting to different gods and goddesses. And that's something that I really love that practice. I love kirtan. I think it's a beautiful practice. I think it really moves things, shifts things. I have a Ganesh statue that I take with me to events. He's a small guy, but I take him with me. And I really connect in with that chant. There's a few others that I really connect in with. And that doesn't mean, does that mean that I'm Hindu? No. Like that's not what that means. Does it mean that I don't believe in source or Jesus or anything like that? Like, no, it's just, I work with Mary Magdalene and Goddess Isis a lot with some of my clients. And so it's one of those things where if we can see things and say, ooh, this resonates with me, that's the discernment part, right? And then we're taking pieces that are like, that doesn't resonate with me so much, so I'm going to put it down. And like allowing people to kind of do that for themselves because I think it's become, how do I want to say this? I think it's become so black and white sometimes. or right or wrong, where it's like you have to kind of pick a side. So if you're not fully picking a side, people are like, "Oh my God, like no, you can't be on this side. You can't be on this side because you're not this enough, you're not that enough, right?" And it's like, why can't I just believe what I believe or what feels good in my body to believe and what feels good to my my moral compass and what feels good to my soul to believe. And even still, like we can come back to that as like truth. And for me, I'm always going to believe truth over everything, which is going back to triggers. So one of the things is like you're missing out on an opportunity to really like learn something about yourself when you're triggered in something. When someone's pushing you or someone's not physically pushing, but like challenging your beliefs or saying, "Okay, well, what about this?" Instead of being reactive and defensive, what if you took your own response, the way your body responds physically, and you take that and you turn it into an opportunity to learn something about yourself. Say, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel so tied to this? Because a lot of people talk about the issues in Gaza, and it's something that I personally don't have capacity for. And maybe a lot of people will come for me because I said that out loud, but and it's horrible that like I have actual fear in my body right now for speaking my truths. And it's just interesting because people should be able to speak their truth without being afraid that they're going to be attacked. And it's interesting because someone shared, also in the spiritual community, someone shared their political beliefs. And so I just responded and I said, "Hey, for me, this is how I see it." I've talked about my son on the podcast. I have a 15-year-old. He is he? I think he's closer to 16 than 15 at this point, maybe 6 months out from 16 as well. But having a child is such a mirror in itself. And it's like being in relationship. And if we go back to the very first episode on the podcast in season one, it's relationships are mirrors in your children, in your friendships, even just in acquaintances, like any human interaction. There's so many situations that are mirrors that are just put in front of us and saying, "Hey, are you going to notice this?" And so when people get triggered and they defend themselves so hard instead of looking inward and taking the opportunity to really see what's going on within themselves and just reacting and kind of attacking others, I think it's really a missed opportunity. And so anyway, I respond with my opinion, right? Like I don't have the capacity, and that's what I said. Like I really feel like it's a situation where our country needs to put our mask on first. There's so much unrest here, so much that needs to be fixed here before we start getting involved in other places. And I feel that way about multiple country interactions. And and then I continued to say, like, it's not like people were just ignoring the fact that there was something that happened in Colorado, at a school, like at the same time, like within the hour or two of Charlie Kirk, um, passing away. And so it's like the two weren't competing against each other. And I think so many people are acting like they are, but it's one of those things where he was giving the opportunity to a whole generation to speak their mind, to listen to each other, even if they agreed or disagreed, to see, like, okay, I can see where you're coming from. All right. Like, and I mean, there's plenty of videos out there that exist where people are just triggered by it. And it's like, okay, if you could calm down for a second and like, instead of planning your next response, why don't you just listen? Like, why don't you just slow down and listen to someone? Because I think that happens so often in our society where people, when you're talking to someone, they're already planning their next response instead of actually listening and hearing them. And I think it's just, it's it's sad because it's like then everybody runs around being misunderstood instead of like really giving themselves the opportunity to see a different perspective or grow their brain capacity or their critical thinking capacity and say, huh, interesting interesting perception. I still believe what I believe, but that's an interesting take on it. And so basically with this, and I mentioned like my son goes to school here. I live here in America. He goes to school here in America. And so for me to worry about another country's citizens, like I just don't have the capacity for it. As a healer, as an entrepreneur, as someone that is self-aware and does work on myself, as a parent, as a partner, I don't have the capacity in this economy. I don't have the capacity. And, I think some people don't realize the weight that parents carry sending their kids to school the day after a school or the day after, you know, something horrible happens to a child. Like, I think unless you have children, like, you really can't fully understand that. And I also don't think you can fully understand what it is to be a parent and the responsibilities. There's so much. There's so much. And I am not saying I'm a perfect parent. I will never say I'm a perfect parent. I apologize to my son for my own shortcomings sometimes because, again, self-aware, I can see them, but also I think being the example and showing him how I'm walking through it, showing him how I'm responsible for my own actions and, you know, holding myself responsible and accountable for the things that happen in our lives. And it's interesting because, my partner has been learning over the last year and a half like what parenting really requires. And it's a lot and it's not for the faint of heart. And, you know, it's like you're trying to teach your children things. And I don't even want to say like right or wrong here. I want to say you try and teach them to have a good moral compass and to teach them to be a good person and what that means. I saw a video on the internet the other day and they were talking about like, or someone was asking their children, like, oh, I have the best news. And these little girls were jumping up and down. They're like, oh my God, Donald Trump is unalived. And I'm like, what? I hope, and I think this is true. I don't think this would ever happen, but I hope that there's never a scenario where my son is like, that's his go-to when I tell him that I have good news, that someone has been unalived. And it's it's heavy. It's heavy to see that, to feel that. And I just he's always had such a big heart. And so in parenting, like you want to make sure that kids are able to navigate as adults, have their own emotional nervous system regulation, deal with kind of what comes up for them, teaching them how to be self-aware, teaching them how to move through the world. Again, people have different beliefs. So some people may teach them how to use firearms. Other people may not teach them that. And that's up to you and your family and what's best for you. But teaching them how to cook for themselves, teaching them how important it is to keep a cleanly home, teaching how important it is to be kind to others. And, even with him, he had a situation recently in football where it's his first year playing and he was second string. And then one day at practice, like he wanted to get on the field and practice more. And the first string kid was like, stop asking me when you can go in. I'll tell you when you can go in. And I obviously, like, as a mama bear mother, I'm always like, oh, the fire within. And I'm like, just a child, calm down. But it's funny because in saying that, like within a week or two, the tables turned where my son became first string and this other kid is now second string. Honestly, they both like have their own things to work on. And like we made sure to have a conversation with Oren about, how important it is to stay humble, to work hard and do your best because you never know when the tables can turn, and being kind to other people. Like just because this kid said this to you and was kind of crappy to you doesn't mean that you should be crappy to him. Because for me, it's always like, can you sleep at night? Like based on this scenario. And if you know me, I'm sure I've talked about sleep multiple times on the podcast. My genetics say I need 10 to 12 hours of sleep, and I love sleep. So, you better be sure that every day I move through the world in a way that will not rob me of my sleep because I love to sleep. But it's interesting. So, in this scenario, I share my opinion, and then I receive a message with all caps letters, not all of them, but like specific ones, trying to prove her point. And it wasn't oh, I could see how you feel that way. It was a, no, this is what I believe, and this is right. And trying to prove her beliefs were right. And it was just so interesting. So then I was just not gonna respond because I'm like, whatever. Like I'm never here for the energy of convincing. I'm not here to convince people that energy work is amazing and it does great things for you. I'm not here to convince people that being intentional will absolutely change your life. Do I know that to be true? 100%. But I'm not going to sit here and convince someone that believes differently, especially if they're closed off to it. And so when we talk about being closed off to something, especially when it comes to things like that, like I immediately think close, like your heart's closed off, like you're not willing to let other experiences, other perspectives to come in because you're so closed off that you refuse to like what's it mean about you if your perspective changes? Like what does that mean about you? Honestly, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't, but I think people think it does mean something. And so it's just interesting because it's like people, I feel like people want to be understood, but they don't want to understand others. So how can that happen? Right? Like if you're in a closed off energy of like, nope, I refuse to see you. So how could you be open to someone else seeing you or themselves, right? But anyway, so I'm not planning on responding, right? And then I see like, and she had shared previously like other people or her response to other people, but not what other people were saying. And then she shared what I said, and then her response, as if what I said was wrong. Again, it's an opinion, it's a belief. So there's not really right or wrong there. It beliefs, right? Um, and I just did not feel good about that. So I responded and I said, "Hey, it's interesting to me that you shared what I said when with everybody else you didn't." And she said, "Well, I didn't share your picture or your account." So, and she's like, "And you messaged me." That goes into the like, the you messaged me thing first goes into like, oh, she was essayed um, because she was dressed that way. Like, I was trying to have an open conversation with you and try to share my perspective with you. But then it went into all these things about how their parents, or I guess family, or they grew up in a society or a family that believed the same conservative beliefs that I do. And it was just like you could tell this person was triggered. And like in that response, I just didn't say anything, blocked them. And I was like, nope. Because then after that, I guess they decided to make even more of an example of me, we will say, and took it to their business page. And they explained everything that happened, their beliefs. And it's like, okay, so what you're saying is your beliefs are the end all be all and they're more important than anyone else's. And when we talk about this stuff in Gaza, like it's just, there's a lot of tragedies that are happening in this world that I don't have the capacity for. Is it heartbreaking that these things are happening? Absolutely. Do I fully understand them? I'm going to be completely honest, no, because I am not a political science major. I'm not in politics. I I do my best to stay informed based on my own beliefs and make decisions from there. But at no point am I hating on someone or telling someone that they're wrong or telling them that their beliefs are wrong and mine are right. Like it's perspectives, right? And so obviously this whole scenario made me feel some type of way. So me being me, this was my opportunity to look inward. And so I had talked to a friend about it that evening, briefly, very briefly. And I reached out to her in the morning and I was like, I just really need a sounding board. I'm a manifesting generator, so sometimes I just need to figure out what I'm feeling. And I think even with my astrology and my big three, like there's a lot of air in my chart. So sometimes just moving the energy and talking about it. My throat's defined in my human design as well. So using my throat chakra is always really good for me. I'm drinking organified green juice. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say right now. It's so good. I have a discount code. If you're looking for a solid green juice, their crisp apple is freaking amazing. But anyway, back on topic. I feel like I've like hopped all over the place right now, but thank you for keeping up. Thank you for following and just I'm just kind of flowing with it today. I really needed to get this out of my body and I think publicly sharing my experience may help others kind of see what's happening. Um, and, you know, it could also like give you the invitation to look inward the next time you're feeling triggered or upset about something that someone said to you. So, because sometimes you just having the conversation further with other people is not, it's not it. It's not the answer. Because sometimes people are so committed to misunderstanding you that you're just gonna talk until you're blue in the face until you're able to really move on. Or you're just gonna talk yourself blue in the face until you like pass out, honestly, because they're just committed to misunderstanding you. And it's like, how much time are you gonna spend giving your energy away to someone else when ultimately like that doesn't benefit you at all. And you can just bring your energy back inward and learn something about yourself, right? Which, you know me, I love to learn. If you don't know me, I love to learn. I love a good brain wrinkle. Free your mind. I was just picked up, I felt like I needed to pick up my cards, and that was the card I pulled. Free your mind. Maybe that's what I'm doing in this episode is freeing my mind. But anyway, so I turn inward, I talk to my friend. I say, you know, I don't know. I'm just like feeling not good about this. And I told her I felt like I was shamed publicly. I felt I I felt like my voice didn't matter. And so she asks me a great question. She hears me, receives it. She says, "I love you. I'm here to talk about this." And then she asks me, why do you feel that way? What's making you feel that way specifically? And I think that's like what people miss out on a lot when we're triggered by something is that opportunity to say, why am I feeling this way? What's really coming up for me right now? Because ultimately, other people's beliefs, other people's crap, what other people are doing, whether it's like jealousy, whether it's envy, like whatever feeling you're feeling, like to just take it out on the other person isn't going to help you. And ultimately, we're here on Earth. This is Earth school, and our souls are here to learn. So I take my human and I say, okay, let's see. Why am I feeling this way? And, I think it even goes back further than what she and I talked about, but I know that in a past life I was murdered for speaking publicly about what I believed. And I've revisited this past life. It's absolutely heartbreaking. I sobbed so much for something I didn't even understand. And it's one of those things where like it was still bringing that up for me. And I felt silenced. I felt like I didn't have the opportunity to share my perspective because one of the things I said was that the what happened at the Colorado school and and what happened with Charlie Kirk, like both of these things, implementing new policies isn't the point. And I said, love is the point. And I was very misunderstood in this because I know a lot of people in spirituality, love and light, love and light. But this person didn't know my work enough to know that I go into the shadow a lot with myself, honestly, with myself. But I also help clear entities for clients. This is something I was initiated on and have learned a lot about. Uh, and it scared the shit out of me at first, but it's something that I'm familiar with, and I know like this is why a lot of the times with my, clients, I talk a lot about how important it is to have energetic hygiene, to set up your protection daily, to clear your energy field frequently, because it's so easy for certain things, even if it's like a trickster energy, to attach to us. And when our energy is clear, when we can connect with our soul on a deeper level in a clear energetic field, without something manipulating our mind, then it allows us to continue to go inward, to continue to grow deeper. Um, and I just said deeper, and I saw like roots going into the ground, so deeper into the earth, but also higher up into the sky, right? Like we need both. We can't spend too much time as spiritual leaders up with source because then we become disconnected, right? We start disassociating, um, spiritually bypassing, and then we have to grow down into the ground and be rooted in who we are and what our beliefs are. And I was accused of spiritually bypassing because I said that when I was very misunderstood. Because when I say that it's about the love, I mean, if you're Christian and you want to take it back to love thy neighbor, right? If you want to take it on a spiritual plane, you know, unconditional love and the frequency of love. And even if you're not in a relationship with someone because it's what's best for you, you can still love that person and you can still feel neutral to that person and say, you know what? This isn't good for me, but I wish you the best, right? And I think you can even, um, I think with loving people, or when I say lead with love, I truly mean connecting with your heart and leading with your heart. And when you connect with your heart first and you lead with your heart, there's less of that triggering that happens because you're truly listening to what you believe in. And for me as well, like if you feel so passionately about anything, anything, whether it's something political, whether it's a cause, whether it's like anything, what are you doing to support it? Other than just getting on the internet and running your mouth about it. Or I don't want to say running your mouth. Other than just getting on the internet and telling other people that they're wrong for believing different than you do. I said what I said. Because I think that there's so like, where's your action in it? If you feel so passionately about it that you want to yell at me and tell me that my beliefs are wrong when they're just my beliefs. Like you can show me somewhere where there's science to that I need to believe something differently, but they're my beliefs. And so when it comes down to it, and if you feel so passionately about something, like where put your money where your mouth is. Do something about it. Go help the people in Gaza. Be on the front lines. You don't want to? Okay. Then quit yelling at me. or quit telling me that my beliefs are wrong because I believe differently, or because not even that I believe differently. I think what's happening in a lot of different areas in the world is absolutely horrible, but because I don't have the capacity for that. And, in all honesty, like a couple years ago, not last year, maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, um, I got an email from my son's school that someone did bring a weapon with them to school. Luckily, there was no magazine, but the time that I had to wait from receiving that email to finding out that there was no magazine was probably an hour to an hour and a half. And that was the worst hour and a half of my life. Um, so when things like that exist and have happened personally, very close to me and my family, I don't think anybody has the right to come at me or say that I'm wrong, quote unquote, for saying that I don't have the capacity to worry about someone else's children. And like, don't get me wrong, if I see a child being wronged or it's something that I can actually do something about, then absolutely I will. Um, we were talking about it just the other day. My partner has such a big heart. And a few years ago, he hasn't done it the last couple of years because usually he's in Europe around Christmas time, but I don't know that we will be there this year. Who knows? A lot can change between now and then. But we were talking about handing out blankets, just asking for donations and handing out blankets to the homeless because it's cold, right? And so put your money where your mouth is. Put action to your beliefs. I think a lot of people will feel better if they do things like that and they're able to help the community that they want to support or help the people they want to support instead of just getting on the internet and yelling at people or telling people that their beliefs are wrong because they believe something differently. Or they don't have the capacity to take in all of the horrible things that are happening in the world and make a big deal about it. Because I know my own living experience, and I'm like, you know, and no matter what I've gone through, I've always done my best to be kind to others, and that is something that I'm teaching my son. That's something that my partner believes. It's something that I think a lot more people could benefit from, if they carry that belief for themselves and treating people how they want to be treated, because I think that's what this is about. And I will say, it was funny, um, watching Charlie Kirk, you can tell he loved to debate people, loved debating people. That's not my jam, personally. Again, I won't convince someone if they're convinced to believe something differently than I do, or if they don't want to look at facts, then I'm like, ah, all right, you do you. Best of luck to you. But he was definitely one of those people that I'm sure, I don't know if he was on the debate team in his school, but like his beliefs were so strong and he had so many facts to back them up that he was able to debate. And people didn't like that, and yeah, like people that love debating, I'm sure some of you that have listened to this know people that have been on the debate team in your school, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I knew that person. Very forceful, very I'm right, because that's the purpose of it, right? They're using facts to say, hey, this is my opinion. But ultimately, when we come down to a human level, and I don't, not human level, but like when we come down to a real life level, like it's not that debates are wrong. It's that sometimes it's okay just to open your mind and see where someone else is coming from. And I honestly feel like so many people are just scared because there's so much misinformation that exists on the internet and there's so much disconnection from themselves and from their intuition that I think a lot of people would honestly really benefit for or benefit from connecting within themselves deeper and really allowing themselves to learn discernment so they can say, you know what, this isn't for me. You know what, I'm not going to follow this account anymore. You know what, I don't know if I actually believe this. Instead of looking at coming from a place of victimhood, honestly, I believe there's a lot of victim. mindset happening right now and a lot of disempowerment. And, even as I record this podcast, I have my goddess Isis candle burning, and she's one of my main guides and angels, I'd say. And that empowerment piece is always so important because there's so many opportunities for us to lean into our own empowerment, and so frequently people choose not to. Because it's easier, because it's an excuse, because it's like, okay, what does it mean if I am disempowered? Or what does it mean about me if I do step into my power? What's going to happen then? And obviously, then we can look at things like past lives, things that have happened to us because we were empowered, because we leaned into our voice. But I think it's so important for everyone to really take the time, even if it's just taking 10 deep breaths, deep, deep belly breaths. That felt good. Um, and just asking your body to show you a yes and a no, or, grounding into your body if you're not even really getting responses right now. Because I think the disconnection from mind and body is happening in our world on purpose, to keep a lot of us asleep, and those that are awakening. It's quite the journey, but definitely like get support when you need it. I have my one-on-one spiritual mentorship that's 6 weeks long. It's curated to each client, but we do go over intuition, we go over energetic hygiene. All of these things are so important. And we talk about energetics in general. A little bit of quantum physics. I don't go too deep into it, but we also talk about manifesting and what that looks like, and why finding a daily connection practice is so important. And if you've listened to this podcast for a while, you know that I ask every client, like every guest, their favorite way to connect with themselves. So if you're not sure how to connect with yourself daily, like listen to a few episodes, even if it's just the first 15, 20 minutes, you'll get, some answers on how you can. And for me, meditation and energy work's always been a great one for me. Sometimes I love connecting through my cards. Sometimes, ooh, actually not sometimes. Nature's always a big one for me too. It was funny. I can't remember. I think it was Thursday last week, and I'd taken a walk, and I was just like, oh, that felt so good. Told my partner, I was like, I feel so much better. Like, I feel so much better after I took a walk and was just in the sunshine. It felt really good. I saw the trees and the ducks. There's this like pond where I walk by, and he just laughed. He's like, "You're such a hippie." Nature speaks to me. I'm truly an earth fairy, and the more I connect with nature, it's just my favorite, and it's really good for my soul. And so I think when I say, not I think, I know when I say, connect with yourself, it's definitely like find what feels good to your soul. Find what feels good to your soul, and it doesn't have to be woo woo. A lot of people find, use Bible study, to connect with themselves, to connect with source. And I think connecting with yourself is a way to connect with source, because we are meant to be empowered. We're meant to learn about ourselves. And what is a more sacred or a more beautiful practice than learning and growing from within? Um, so yeah, if you find something right now that's triggering you in person, on the internet, ask yourself why. Get curious with yourself. Figure out what it is. Look at that, take that mirror and say, okay, let's look at it. Let's see. Let's see what it is. And just go with it. Don't judge yourself. I know it's hard sometimes. Sometimes I can be very critical of myself. Uh, deep, deep perfectionism within me, but I've worked through a lot of it, and I've learned to be gentle with myself. And even when my ego speaks up and I am criticizing myself for either not being perfect or doing something wrong or making the wrong choice, or, just whatever it might be, whenever that happens, even if there is something happening, uh, I'm able to like kind of see that criticism and say, you know what? That doesn't define me. But yeah, I would definitely take the time to see what mirrors are showing you and see what your triggers are showing you, see where they're inviting you to go deeper within. Yeah, and I just am sending everyone that's listening to this so much love. I'm sending the whole collective of people that work with me, as well as those that need it more than anything. Sending everyone so much love, and I hope that you can see from someone's perspective today, tomorrow, sometime. Doesn't mean you have to change your beliefs, just notice it. I'm laughing. I was shuffling my cards. It's funny because I was talking about nature, and one of my favorite oracle decks is Nature's Whispers. And this deck is just beautiful. There's butterflies all over it. Butterflies are a sign for me, for sure. And the card that I pulled is Empowerment. I'm going to take my, actually, I think I can just put it up. For those that are looking on YouTube, nope, I'm going to take the blur off so you can see. For those watching on YouTube, um, yeah, you'll be able to see the card, and it's just so beautiful, right? Like, ugh, so beautiful. She's just empowered. It's like Mother Nature, showing the ocean like calm. There's like half that's stormy and like rough terrain, and then the other half is like this bright and beauty. There's butterflies, there's lightning, there's the sun, there's clear skies, there's dark clouds, and I think like that's the empowerment of it all, right? Like when we can take something that's triggering us and turn it into like, okay, what can I learn? Like taking that invitation and getting excited about it, and like, okay, how can I transmute this? How can I, if I don't like how that's making me feel, what can I do to shift it? Um, Again, the free your mind card, that one popped up, but then also a past loved one is here. Spirits are with us. Our guides are with us always. Anyway, sending everyone so much love. That's the end of this episode, and thank you for listening always. Um, yeah, if you watch this on YouTube, leave a comment, maybe of a new perspective that you've shifted, or what you've learned about yourself through your own trigger. If you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple, feel free to leave a review. I love hearing what you guys enjoy about the podcast. And I will actually probably be doing a giveaway soon for those that leave reviews. So if you leave a review now, I will definitely add you to that bucket. I haven't decided what's being given away, but thank you for listening and for being here. And yeah, that's all from me. Thanks for coming to my pep talk.